Greetings, fellow armchair grammarians. In previous videos, I talked at length on the noun clause, especially the noun clause that employs the word that. I call them that noun clauses. I showed how the that noun clause can perform 6 different functions in a sentence. There's 3, and there's 3 more. Okay, I talked about that. Then I got to video number 13A, appositive versus noun complement. And I had very few people watch the video, but that's okay. Over time, maybe people be drawn to it. And I narrowed it down in that video, okay, to the that noun clause acting as an appositive or a noun complement. And the sample sentence I used was the proposition that he was advancing was preposterous. You can go back and review that if you're interested. And it got to the point where I couldn't really come to a conclusion. I got to the point where I left it up to the viewer to decide, well, what do we have here? And that video was made 14 months ago. I waited 14 months to see if anybody would catch on or try to solve the problem. And really no one did. No one really made any great effort. And like I said, I hardly have any views on that video. But I left the viewer, the audience, with this. I said, okay, here's what we have. I showed this piece of paper, right? And I asked the question, if there's such a thing as a restrictive appositive, can there be a non-restrictive appositive? And if there's such a thing as a restrictive noun complement, can there be a non-restrictive noun complement? Once again, I showed this page repeatedly, and I left it up to the viewer. And I, as I said, I waited 14 months to see if anything would develop, and nothing really happened. So I have an opinion, I have an answer, I have a solution that I'd like to share. It's going to take maybe 1 to 3 videos, but I'm going to get to the point, and I think it's a beautiful thing. So if you could bear with me, as a matter of fact, in that video 13A at the 10-minute point, I asked a question. I said, now, does that make any sense to anybody? I asked that question. Does that make any sense to anybody? Well, it's a very, very difficult topic, and I'd like to get into it right now. Now, when you're looking at the appositive and the noun complement, as I mentioned previously, there's different attitudes and different perspectives, okay? It's appositive versus noun complement, but I mentioned it's also prescriptive versus descriptive. Basically, what you're saying is it's kind of conservative versus liberal. It's kind of a grammatical perspective that you might say prescriptive, the traditional, good old-fashioned, is more conservative, and descriptive is liberal, all that liberal crap you see on fake news. Now, you could also say it's rational versus irrational. If you think it through and think it deeply, which I do in my videos, and I'm going to continue to do so, or even on a deeper level, you could say it's conscious versus unconscious. In other words, when we consciously speak, unconscious elements are always being pushed up and affect our speech, our content, our context, and it always pushes up. Because I learned that from Carl Jung, my psychological hero, and I learned that a little bit from Arthur Schopenhauer, my philosophical hero. Now, in any case, you have to consider the context. You always must consider the context. And the question is, what are we really saying when we're saying something? So I hope when I say something in these videos that people learn something. Now, to really figure out the appositive versus noun complement problem, we have to first look at the appositive, okay? We look at it and we say, well, what does it do? It sort of renames, or it sort of adds info. It sort of gives a new description, or you could say it creates a close copy. And some people say it even explains. I have a question mark for that because explain isn't really a good definition, but the appositive essentially kind of renames, all right? Now, the appositive is dispensable. It's non-essential. It can be taken out. If you understand the context of the phrase or the sentence, it can be taken out, right? Dispensable. And it's co-referential, okay? Co-referential. The noun equal the appositive. In the noun phrase, the noun is kind of close in rank to the appositive, or they can be switched back and forth, you see? Your head noun, appositive, all right? Then we have the factor of the commas. The commas make it easy to identify a non-restrictive appositive, okay? It's very clear for you. The commas show you that it's a non-restrictive appositive. Now, here's an example. That sentence that I used in previous videos, the proposition that he was advancing was preposterous. You see here, you have your noun, all right? Your head noun. Here's your appositive, all right? The proposition is this. It's the fact that the idea, the notion that he was advancing, that was the proposition, all right? Now, when you say this as a non-restrictive appositive, what you're saying is there's only one proposition. You know, because of the punctuation and the wording, that we're talking about one and only one proposition, and that's a key feature. Now, here's another sample sentence. My sister, Jenny, is athletic, and you see the commas. You see your head down, and you see your appositive, okay? Now, in this case, with this very simple example, you see that there's only one sister. And if there's only one sister, when you're talking to somebody, let's say I have only one sister. When you're talking to somebody and there's only one sister, then the name of the sister doesn't really matter. The name doesn't matter. If you have only one sister, you could call her sis, sissy, sibling. There's only one sister, and you know that, and your friends know that. So you see that the dispensable, non-essential quality of the appositive becomes evident. Okay, do you understand that? It's a beautiful thing. So in our study of comparing the appositive to the noun complement, we notice immediately, because of the commas and the context, all right, that the key element in our discussion here is restriction. Restrictive or non-restrictive. The key element in this whole study that I'm doing is restriction. Now, you remember when I did videos on what I call distinction phrases and clauses, all right? They used to be called relative clauses. I don't call them that. The key element in understanding the distinction phrases and clauses was reference. Reference was the key to figuring out the topic, the subject. With your what you used to call relative clauses, reference was the key point. Now, to figure out the appositive versus noun complement problem, we see already that restriction is the key, crux, critical concept to helping us figure it out, okay? Now, sorry, I'm having trouble breathing today. Noun complement, all right? You've heard of that. It's kind of a newer, more contemporary, more descriptive term. Some people don't even believe in it. They say, well, there's no such thing. And it's normally not found in traditional grammar. It's kind of a new thing, all right? So what does it do? It completes or complements, or it completes the meaning of a phrase, or you could say it helps the speaker impart information with more precision, okay? So that's the noun complement. And what are its features? Well, it's indispensable. You kind of can't take it out. You can, but you really shouldn't, all right? the context in which you're speaking and writing is very, very critical. Okay, it's non-co-referential, okay? So basically, it's not like with the appositive, noun equal appositive. It's not like that. It's more like noun plus noun complement, all right, equal your full idea. The phrase would impart the full idea of what you're trying to say. All right, now, commas. There's no commas employed when you're using a noun complement, all right? And when you see there's no commas, you realize, and within the context of what you're reading, you see that the noun complement is not doing what the appositive does. It's not doing what the appositive does. The appositive renames. But what's the noun complement doing? Well, it's making a distinction. A distinction is being made. It's clear. Now watch this. Here's a simple sample sentence. I purchased a bushel of potatoes. Okay? I purchased a bushel of potatoes. Well, you take out your noun complement, all right? It's a bushel of what? A bushel of what? Well, of potatoes. So you see that the prepositional phrase of potatoes acting as a noun complement can be removed, but you really shouldn't, because you say, well, what the hell is he talking about? He purchased a bushel of what? Okay? Now, in my sentence in my previous videos, all right, the proposition that he was advancing was preposterous. You see no commas here, all right? So the noun complement, because of the lack of commas, is a little harder to recognize than the appositive, all right? But it's restrictive. In other words, it's restrictive. When you see this proposition, you see no commas, you see that they are differentiating one proposition from another. When you see no commas, okay, that tells you that there's likely more than one proposition, okay? And so the fact that there's no commas tells you that they're differentiating this proposition from the others. And the key element, again, is restriction. Restriction. Non-restrictive, you have your commas, and restrictive, you have your no commas. So that's a very important feature. I'm going to stop now and move on to the next one and show you a beautiful thing, how I think I've answered the question about the debate between appositive and noun complement. I'm pretty sure I nailed it. We'll find out. So thanks for being patient, and I hope to see you in the next video. Good night.